My humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on January 12th, 2026 at approximately 8 p.m. PST. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every decision I make by. With this in mind, don't like that. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before I get into things, I do want to tip my hat to Storm. He is our primary moderator that hides in the back, and he's there to make sure the tech keeps working. Yeah, and rest assured, around me, that's a tricky part, a tricky maneuver. Okay, he's also there to make sure that problem children that show up are not problem children for very long. And to those of you that are coming in with the idea of being a problem child, realize Storm is very good at figuring out who you are, where you came from, why you're there, the whole 9 yards, and you'll end up outside. No problem, because this is designed as a safe haven for virtually everybody. Wannabe bullies included if they behave. All you gotta do to make sure you stay inside the room, follow the laws at the top of the stream. Okay, or running across the bottom of the screen, your call. Okay, now we also have LA Moon in the house. She is the primary moderator that sits inside the chat room. And again, she's there to make sure that problem children don't stick around. She also keeps the conversation moving if necessary. And of much greater importance, in my opinion, she keeps an eye on my own health. Fortunately, she's never turned around and said, Keith, you're drinking too much coffee. Of course, I don't know if I'd listen anyway, but what the heck. That said, today we are looking at sharing expenses. Why do it? Okay. Now, we have, first of all, Mike Jones. You are in with the gold. How you doing, Mike? Glad you could join us. And then we have Operation Shutdown is in with the silver. Nice to see you again, Operation. When I first started looking at the idea of sharing expenses, I literally was looking at the financial side. Now, in today's world, prices, grocery prices are stupid. Okay, they really are. And buying 2-for-1 is a really bad idea unless you go through it. Okay, but yeah, LA goes, it'd be an awful I'd be an awful hypocrite if I told you drink too much coffee. Probably, but no, the reality is, in today's world, it's difficult to make finances work properly. So the reason that you share expenses, for instance, if you got a family member, if you got a friend, or for that matter, a stranger, and you're not going to eat 10 pounds of potatoes, you can eat 5, but you're not going to be able to eat 10, okay, before they go sour. By splitting the cost of a 10-pound bag of potatoes, you can both get it for less, because let's face it, a 5-pound may run you 7, 10-pound runs you 10. Okay, you're saving $2 a piece. Okay, and that is how you get ahead, is by saving the money that you don't have to throw out. Because I'll tell you, there's no question, buying something like, for instance, a 2-for-1 dish soap. Dish soap doesn't go bad. Okay, and please tell me you're not drinking it. Hopefully not. But, dish soap doesn't go bad. So if you end up with an extra bottle sitting on the shelf for a while, it's okay. Okay, it's a question of the perishables. And as I found out the other day, with the canned goods, check your canned goods. Cosmic, how you doing? Glad you could join us. It turns out canned goods, in spite of the fact people telling you they last forever in a day. I opened a can of tomato soup the other day. Actually, I think it was last night. Figuring it was on my shelf, no problem. I'd been trying to, make sure good food didn't go away and go to the garbage. Check the dates. This thing was 4 years old when I opened it up, and it wasn't bubbled. The ends had not popped. Okay. When I opened it up, the tomato sauce was black. Not red, black. This is not something I decided I was going to eat. For some weird reason, I threw it out. Oh, there we go. LA goes, I was able to get 20 pounds for $3.97. My neighbor was thrilled to get it. Now the neat part is I'm up in Canada, so $3.97 works out to around the $5, which ain't bad. But in all fairness, I've never seen potatoes up here at $5 for a 20-pound bag. I've never seen it. But the other thing I came across was, sharing expenses also means carpooling people. Okay. Now, you only do this if you can drive or if somebody you know can. Don't do it if you don't have a driver's license. This is just a bad idea. Yeah, LA goes, yeah, it's a good thing you didn't eat it. It was likely botulism. Yeah, well, I just took a, now I'm not good with color, but I'm thinking when it didn't smell, but it was pithy, it was just blacker than spades. I'm like, no, but thanks very much. Yeah, in all fairness, Cosmic, I eat a lot of tuna fish, a lot of fresh fish and whatnot. Well, fresh and things like imitation crab, or I'll buy clam, that sort of thing. I'm buying less and less in the way of canned food, really. But whatever it is, when we're talking finances, by sharing the cost with somebody else, you can both get a decent deal and spend less money on it. Jeff, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And I do believe I screwed something up here. So we scroll all the way back up to the top. And we see here we had Mike comes in with the gold, Operation in with the silver, Cosmic, you came in with the bronze, and Jeff, you have come in with honorable mention. The fact of the matter is, I decide, sharing is not just a question of sharing finances or sharing gas, gas costs and that sort of thing. Okay. I found out yesterday, and not a word of a lie on this, like I'm going to lie to you for any reason anyway. But I had to cancel both streams yesterday because I got hit broadside with a really bad emotional impact that happened to, because of my system, I crippled not only my computer that I usually do the stream on, but both the computers and the TV up front. I shut down the whole network in my house. Needless to say, operating here wasn't going to work. But I discussed things with my family and came to a couple of understandings. I'm doing things my way, first and foremost, because trying to adjust to fit everybody else's idea isn't working. And this brings us back to that first karmic law. You must be true to you first. Okay, that simply put means you got to look at what works for you, what makes you you. But trying to make yourself adjust yourself for everybody around you isn't going to work well. Okay, so I strongly encourage you to figure out what makes you content without breaking karmic law. And by the way, that also means without breaking the written law of the land in which you are. Now, I did, I watch Facebook on occasion. Well, I watch Facebook a lot, but they've got some really neat comments that come up there. The reality, I do appreciate that, guys. I really was at a conflict where it comes to whether or not, and I fight this all the time. I've got two streams: Positive Perspectives, and which is a free magazine, and Positive Perceptions, which is this place. Okay, and I came to the conclusion that I use these terms: positive this, positive that. For somebody that talks so much in the way of positive, you would be appalled at how frequently I fight depression. Okay, and there are days when I give into it and just say scrap it, I'm just not going any further. I mean, I talked to a dietitian today, and when I told her that I knew if the medication I was supposed to be on was stopped, I knew I was going to die. She asked what would happen if I'll die. She jumps to the conclusion, she goes, "So you want to die instead of taking medication?" I'm like, why do I bother trying to explain it? So the reality of it is this, guys. I'm doing things my way. Okay, the tools I offer here are simple. I use them, they work for me. I pass them on. If they work for you, great. If they don't, again, do your own research. The reality is my kids and my immediate family know exactly where I'm standing. Okay. Where are we? Yeah. LA goes, your house, your way. Storm, and then she goes, Storm and I have an agreement. He's less emotional than I am, so he's in charge. Yeah, can you picture what would happen if you let your temper out? It's kind of like letting my temper out. Not a good idea. Outcome is pretty solid. Fatal, but solid. And I don't do the vertical bar scene well. Yeah, that's the thing with a stable marriage, LA. It really is. The fact of the matter is, sharing your ideas is as important, if not more so, than sharing expenses. And the reason you do it is so you don't have to weather a storm on your own. Karen and I have the same arrangement. Now, she's a lot more emotional than I am, unless I come off the rail. And then it's just not fun. Yeah. Thank heavens for that, LA? And he goes, my temper's contained, mostly. But no, I take a look at it and go, okay, what's the outcome I'm aiming for? For me, it's simple. I told my boys and my wife, I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. Of course, most people don't plan on it. But by sharing what's bothering you in a concise fashion, now, with Kira and I, if either one of us get emotional, talking becomes problematic. So if we're having a problem, we will resort to technology to make it happen, to get the point across. But that's just the reality of that's finding a workaround by the individuals. It doesn't always work the same way, not for everybody. Now, from my standpoint, it's real simple. You share the whole load, okay? And it doesn't matter if you share everything with the same person. The reality is that find different people so you can spread it around, because I'll tell you, with the amount of stuff that goes on in my head and the amount of financial struggle I've gone through over the years, it's been a question of making sure you share what you can with various people so they don't have to try and carry all of your excess. And that can be problematic, especially for those of you that don't like sharing in the first place. I didn't want to breathe anyway. No, I'm not dying. I just quit breathing. Every now and then my lungs quit working. So what the heck? I've gone through a staggering amount. I'm 62, and I will still tell you, yes, I've got a stubborn streak a mile and a half wide. Okay, but the reality behind it is this. Being stubborn is not always a good thing, but it is what I've got to work with. This does not make me better than anybody. The reason you turn around and share, yeah, Ellie goes, if storm's ticked off, and that isn't quite what was written, but you're just not getting the other side. She goes, I wait until he's ready to talk. It's pointless until then. Yeah, and that's the whole catch. For me, if I get wound up too far, first and foremost, you don't want to be in the same room. Okay, even if you're not the one I'm ticked with. But it is extremely important to share with somebody. Sometimes you don't have somebody to share with. In a case like that, write it down. It will still get the negative energy out of your body. Okay? But when I'm talking expenses, staying focused on the material side of it, as it were, do not be afraid, especially if you've got kids or other residents in your house. Do not be afraid to share the cost of the accommodations, the cost of the utilities. The fact of the matter is they're getting benefit from them as well. Cosmic goes, since my neighbor mows my lawn for free, I bought them a Swiss colony party platter for Christmas. And this is another way of sharing. They're doing that for free, and I don't know about the Swiss colony party pack, but I do know my upstairs neighbor, very much akin to the same idea. We get along. They've got a 4-year-old centipede up there, right? And I swear he thinks he's got a pogo stick. But we don't have an argument with it. They sent down, I kid you not, a 3-foot long box of chocolate. Now that works out well for my kids and for my wife. I don't do the chocolate thing often, so that becomes another issue. But it's another way of sharing. Like for the idea of your neighbor mowing your lawn for free. It keeps the neighborhood looking nice, and you're still showing appreciation. The fact is, if more of us were to do that with less concentration on what the money is like, we would have some pretty serious changes. And Battleliner, how we doing? Glad you could join us. And where are we here? Look at that. I'm keeping an eye on things. Right now, I'm really happy to say, I don't pay a lot of attention to the number of subscribers we got, but we are now safely over the 700 mark. Now, I've seen subscribers go and people get thousands of subscriptions. I'm like, I'm not that exciting. I'm really not. All I'm doing is going, here's some techniques that might save you $1 or $2, may save you a headache or two. I don't know. I just do what I do. The reality of it is this. When we start sharing properly, and I don't mean just sharing this thing of, oh, so-and-so's an nincompoop, or so-and-so's a problem, right? Or here's the negative thing that this corporation did. I'm not talking about just sharing the negative things. I'm talking about sharing things that help. Like for instance, this particular video, okay, this particular idea of sharing. Absolutely forward the link to your friends, your strangers, your enemies even. Maybe something will twig. I remember being at the park one day, and over before marijuana became legal, and there was a kid that showed up absolutely annoyed, right? Absolutely annoyed. And I just, because everybody was calling him different names, I said, did anybody ever ask why he's upset? One kid looks at me and goes, well, what do you mean? I said, he was mad when he got here. Something happened. One kid went over and asked him. Turned out the kid was severely abused at home. And those two ended up with a solid friendship that to the last I heard, which was about 2 years ago, they're still friends today. Now, did I see... Kitty Cat, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Robert White, did I miss you coming in? It would seem so. Oh. I see what's happened here. But really happy to see you again there, Robert. The reality of it is, I take a look at the people here now. You guys, in all fairness, with the encouragement that I've had from you, with you guys sharing your encouragement, this is why I keep coming back and even though I miss days, and unfortunately, that's probably going to happen for a while. I do my best to stay focused on the positive side of it. But to say it's a bit of a challenge is an extreme understatement. But the reason we share is there's an old saying from back when I was a kid that went, many hands make light work. Okay, and the reason for that is because if you're trying to move something heavy or you're trying to carry something heavy, you get a bunch of people pitching in, and it's not as much of a strain for any one individual. Okay, this is why, much as positive perceptions is coming back to the market, I'm only going. It's going to be a very small addition this month. Okay, but it lays the groundwork, and from here on, we move forward. The reality of it is, by sharing ideas, and this is why I say, if you've got an idea for a topic, that you'd like on positive perceptions, or you've got an idea for an article or for a story that you'd like in Positive Perspectives, bearing in mind Positive Perspectives is a free magazine available through the link at the top of the stream at buymeacoffee.com/innervoicej. Okay, understand I do not pay for articles right now because we're not making money because it's free. But last year I was looking at my numbers, and using very minimal advertising, I actually, through book sales and consulting, I actually made over $1,000 last year. This is not great. Okay, but as of yesterday, this year, I've already pulled in over 200. So we're already on a good run. And now I'm starting to figure out how to market. But this is where word of mouth comes in. When you've got this idea of, oh, I've got expenses, this idea of you need to go to the grocery store and a neighbor of yours needs to go to the grocery store. This is one of the reasons you get to know your neighbor. Okay. Number one, you know who your neighbor is, you know what kind of people are running around your neighborhood. Makes it a little safer. And yes, I know there's records out there that say, a lot of break-ins take place by people you already know. Rest assured, let's say you do know them. No problem. What you got to realize is if somebody breaks into your house, even if you know them, if they break into your house, they are not a friend. Okay? It's that simple. It's one thing if they break into your house because there's a hurricane going on and they're trying to get to safety. But if they're coming in to steal from you, this is not friendship behavior. One of the things I look at is when you're looking at your finances, take a look at your balances. Make certain that you're actually moving forward. Oh, Cosmic goes, I only get views on YouTube when I do short videos. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Attention spans on people are phenomenally short. I watch the videos I do, and turns out many of the views that I do get are like 5 minutes long. But I'm not doing it for the views. Okay, I'm doing it for one reason. And that, technically for two. Part of it is I got a lot of information I'm sitting on. I don't know specifically how I came up across all of it. But I do know the number of people that have come forward and said, don't stop what you're doing, Keith. It is helping. Okay. And it's been that encouragement, that sharing of emotions that has kept me doing this. Okay. It's also that sharing of emotions that has told me if things aren't working, I'm going to have to take the day off whether I wanted to or not. Where are we here? LA goes, I'm pretty sure that strolling shorts leads to left brain blowout. I was wondering that. I've been lost on shorts by scrolling through them. But there are some people that do shorts that are hilarious. They really are. And I've got a lousy sense of humor to start with. But the information I've got and that I've got going out, like with positive perspectives, I am putting out a number of booklets that are all going to come out at the same time in the beginning of the new year. Yes, I'm still working on the other ones. Okay. But I've given people time frames that I was going to work on. That didn't work so well for me. But when you've got an idea, and this is really to those of you that are thinking about going back after something, okay, and that is this: if you're looking at going back to do something that you feel is enjoyable, don't hesitate. Yeah, you're absolutely right, LA. LA goes, not to down shorts, but too much of a good thing can still be too much. Absolutely. Hence why the concept, everything in moderation. So I'm down, I've slowed my coffee down. I'm down from about 50, 60 cups a day to about 30. I'm thinking this is not a bad move. Although I have cut my sugar intake, as in my Coca-Cola, from 2 liters a day to about a third of a liter every 3 or 4 days. So I'm thinking that was a smart move. Because I'll tell you, that much sugar, yes, I like my Coca-Cola. I used to like it a lot more with rye. Of course, in all fairness, I was an alcoholic, so that might explain the preference. But no, when you're looking at sharing time, sharing finances, by sharing the weight, even of your own stresses, it's a whole lot better than what you could be going through. Okay? Because if you got somebody to talk things through and help you find a balance point, this is critical. Okay? The reality of it is, if something's bothering you, doesn't matter how theoretically small it is. If it's bothering you, it's something you've got to find somebody to talk to. Now, it was suggested one day that I go to work on a crisis line. And I'm like, that's not a good idea. Bearing in mind, I've been a functional psychic since I was 10 years old. Going to work on a crisis line works out something like, oh, I'm so depressed, I'm going to commit suicide. I'm sitting there going, yeah, you just broke up with your girlfriend for the 4th time in the last month and a half. You're whining to get attention from somebody. How about if you knock off the suicide runs? I'm not known for being subtle. And yes, I have handled suicide runs in similar cases to that. This is not a recommended method. I've never lost one. Don't know if that's consolation. Yeah, Cosmic goes, I drink only ice water, mainly. Diet Cola, caffeine free in moderation. I never understood why they made cola caffeine free. And what they use for a sweetener, I seriously recommend looking into what it is. I looked into what it is, but I'm not going to give you that piece. This is why I drink standard Coca-Cola. I am, however, happy they don't add the cocaine to it anymore. Uh-oh, that might have been a wrong word. The reality of it is that I look at what you're doing when we're looking at sharing expenses. Share expenses, share experiences. The more you communicate with each other, the less of a burden the society around you is going to feel like. And yes, I have a very bad habit of speaking first and thinking second, which is why I get in trouble with a lot of people. Yeah, Battle Line goes, so they can sell brown flavored water? Pretty much. Mind you, realistically, that's what coffee is. It's brown flavored water. I just like the flavor of coffee more than I like the flavor of chlorine. I know they both start with the same thing and with the same letter. But one of the important factors I look at is this. If you're having trouble bearing, taking, carrying something. Oh, here we are. LA goes, all kidding aside, I've taken the coffee to 60 ounces a day with no soda, unless I'm out and can't find decent water. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I can tell you this from practical experience: mixing Coca-Cola or any pop with coffee is a bad idea. It really is. It's just not worth the effort. It's kind of like mixing ketchup and ice cream. You may like both. I'm not recommending it. I tried it. I was not impressed. Although it did leave an impression. But when you come up with ideas, when you come up with recipes, when you come up with money saving concepts, in today's world, even millionaires like saving money. Okay. They just like spending a lot more. And that's where I ran into the problem. Because here's the real kicker with money. You know, here's where the money problem comes. If you're not content, you will likely spend more money striving to make yourself feel like you're happy than what you'll actually save. Now, this is how I got into spending too much money at restaurants. Don't like cooking, not good at it. Well, thought I wasn't good at it. They ended up on hospital food. But take your family recipes, share them with each other. Okay, take your money saving ideas. Now, here's one that works like an absolute charm. With the grocery store I go to, okay, at the bottom of the grocery list, it tells me how much money I saved. That money, take and put in an actual savings account. Same idea. If you can go and buy and share the cost of groceries with a neighbor, with a friend, with a family member, doesn't matter. The money you save can be the difference between keeping a roof over your head and losing everything. Okay. But again, don't take my word for it. Over the next several months, we are going to be looking at different ways specifically of making money work. Okay. And I'm talking about learning it the hard way. I'm not perfect. I've been bankrupt twice. I've been in financial distress most of my life. Okay. And when I wasn't in financial distress, I was in financial debt stress. But the reality of it is this. I was spending money to make myself feel like I was happy. Now I've given up on the idea. It's like, I know I'm not content with this world. So I'm still not watching the news. Because if you turn the news on, and you share all the negative things that are being passed about, all it's going to do for people is make them afraid and depressed. Where we go. Storm and I shared expenses when we moved in together. Nothing got bought without a negotiation. We both had a work budget for gas and occasional candy bar. And that is the one thing I will tell you. Okay. One of the biggest tricks I found, and my wife and I do this. We get money in. We take 1% and hand it to I take 1% of whatever comes through the door. Hand it to my wife. Put 1% in my own pocket. That's mad money. That's what we use for buying a chocolate bar, buying a drink out of the house, whatever. Okay? Because I'll tell you, by paying yourself first, 1% off what comes in the front door does not make an appreciable impact on your income most of the time as far as covering your roof over your head. Okay, and I will tell you this. The two bills that you've got to make certain you're paying. And if you got more than one person in the house, absolutely share these bills. If nothing else, your shelter, whether that's rent, lease, ownership, whatever. Okay, your shelter cost, and a bare minimum, split the cost of the power. If you don't have cable, you don't have the telephone. If you've got power and a roof over your head, and food at your house, you'll do fine. Okay. And I do recommend splitting the cost of food, especially in one house, because it's a royal pain trying to go, this is my food, you can't have it, especially in a home. You know, one of the biggest things I did find where it comes to sharing expenses is this. When you share expenses, and I kid you not, bring your kids in when you're doing the finances and figuring out where you stand financially speaking. If you've got kids or anybody that you have that you're taking care of, bring them in and show them what your actual day-to-day costs are. Okay? It will help them understand why you turn around and go, we can't afford that. Okay? And realistically, if you don't show them how to handle their money, you're condemning them to figuring it out on their own once they move out. I can tell you from a practical standpoint, this doesn't end well. 2 bankruptcies will tell you that. LA goes, beauty of it. We've never fought over money or who has it. We have it. Rent is first, utilities next, groceries and gas. Everything after that is talked over every time. Absolutely. This is something that Kira, my wife, and I are now doing. Well, we've been doing it since she moved up here. The reality is sharing the responsibility and the cost is extremely important. There is no shortcut to it. Okay? Not that I'm aware of. And for those of you that are backwoods and, shall we say, a little caught in the past, the fact that and I'm going to tick somebody off. Somebody in that house may think they're the better budgeter, okay, or the better financier. But share the information, because I will tell you, I've seen men and women alike, senior citizens and kids alike, scramble their finances and do it so badly that they turn to so-called professionals. Now, both times I got turned in and I got guided to bankruptcy. One, you'll love this, guys. The first time I went bankrupt, I was guided to bankruptcy on a $6,000 bill. Okay, I was bankrupted I was guided there the second time on a $14,000 bill. Now I'm over $20,000 in debt and climbing out of it, but I'm making headway. I will tell you, when you share the weight of your concerns and the weight of the finances, all of a sudden you're standing on good ground. That is why you do it. Okay, now don't take my word for it. Okay, for pity's sakes, if you haven't done this before, I encourage you to do so. But in either event, absolutely talk to the people close to you. If you don't have anybody close to you, talk to somebody you trust, or talk to somebody that's paid to do it. Okay, as long as you find somebody to help you understand where you're going sideways. And this is why I talk about the idea of, if you can afford to wait for something, do so. It's just one of these things that we have to look at and go, where am I heading from here? What am I going to do? Okay, now I take a look at things and go, this is what I've got to deal with. And I was just talking to my one son today. We burned our mic out the other day. And I was going, yeah, I can force the issue and dig one together. But I'm thinking, the more I think about it, the less inclined I am to buy a new microwave right now. Yes, they're convenient as all get out, but many times convenience doesn't work well. Okay, the one thing you got to realize is, when you're looking at how much you can afford to do, go to a company that does a lease to own or a rent home. Absolutely find out what they figure it's going to cost you to, this is the kind of payment it's going to make. Now, here's the kicker to it. Take somebody with you so you don't miss anything. Okay, here's the kicker. if you've got $1,000 item and you can afford to pay $150 a month, okay, that rental, in all likelihood, they're going to put you on a 2 to 3 year lease where you're going to be paying $150 a month for 2 or 3 years. So that $1,000 item is all of a sudden going to be well over $4,000 by the time you pay for it, unless you take that same 150 and put it aside and go, I'm not paying that much. Eternity, how you doing? Glad you could join us. If you take that same 150 and put it aside for a couple of months at a time, what you'll find, for a few months, in 150 in 8 months, it's bought and paid for and it's brand new. This applies to anything that isn't an immediate emergency. Now, I absolutely agree with you. You blow your washer, your dryer, your furnace. These are things that need repair right away. Or as happened in one home I lived in, we blew the sump pump. It had to be replaced right away. And what came in? That's one of these things that we have to realize. By sharing your costs, by sharing your stresses, you'll find things come into balance pretty quick. Okay. And what we've got to realize is no matter what you're up against, okay, if you're being honest with the people close to you, much more importantly, if you are remaining honest with you, you will find you land on much solider ground much more quickly. Okay. I did consider for the longest time upgrading my wardrobe. And I got looking at it going, why? So other people feel that I'm showing I'm successful. I figure I drop my stress level down. I can afford to go out for a meal when I choose. I'm doing well. And it has come to my attention that striving to make everybody else happy is not going to work around. Yeah, LA's just suggesting if you got to buy a big ticket item, shop around. Okay, take a look, see what kind of a deal is out there. Like I told my son, the only stipulation I have around a microwave, or anything for that matter, is we keep the bells and whistles to a minimum. I have trouble with them. And of course, now I've got a wife that's 100% blind. She doesn't have a lot of luck with touch tone either. The reality is I've already started working, because this year Christmas, as in Christmas 2026, I'm already starting to look at gifts and gift ideas. It won't save me money, but it'll sure kill the impact at the end of the year. Now, one of the biggest things that I will tell you, I could, and this is just something for all of you to think about. Grocery shopping is expensive, very time consuming, and it takes a lot of work. Okay, I happen to, in Kelowna, we have a grocery store that I can order online. They will do all the shopping. I have to pay for it, obviously, including a delivery fee. But that delivery fee is $5. Now, I cannot drive to the grocery store and do it and make it there and back for $5 of today's wages. Okay, so I spend $5. They do all the shopping, bring it right to my apartment door. Okay, and I'm telling you, it saves me a lot of money. It keeps them busy, right? Gives them a job. And there is no way I can say $5, even if I have to pay $10 for delivery. I can't do it when you think it's also going to take me, 2 or 3 hours of time to make the run. Oh, cute. LA goes, we actually got a mutton button one time. Product was from New Zealand. Well, it's a good place to get mutton from. the neat part about it, from your standpoint, is these are things that you can get. Now, I do not personally trust the internet for shopping. I've seen way too many problems with it. Okay. But when it comes to a local store, they're the money, even if even if the head office is out of town, it does employ local people. Okay. And, I take a look at the treatment that the staff is given. To me, that's extremely important. But again, this whole idea of sharing expenses aren't only finances. Don't forget, energy is an expense, as in your own personal energy to get things done. Now, I could certainly find other ways to cut different overheads. Okay, but I'm not that interested in certain things. Thank you very much, Ellie. We are down to the 15-minute mark. Now, I will tell you, let me see here, not that one. What did I do with it? I'm looking for something I had here. And of course, I'm not going to find it right now, but that's the standard reason. It's the way my life usually goes. But when I got looking at it, I figured, okay, what can we do to really make this world work a little better? Well, number one, we have to start looking in the mirror and go, okay, this is what I'm working with. I am not about to continue blaming other people. Yes, there's all kinds of advertising out there that says how special things are. I'm telling you, if it's not an emergency, put the money aside. Get together with people around you. Okay, whether they are family, friends, relatives, or for that matter, enemies. Okay, splitting the cost is the difference. Quite often between being able to put a balanced meal in your house and not. Now, maybe you've got an immune system like mine, but I'm betting probably not. Okay, but you do have a better social circle. I can virtually guarantee it. As in my local social circle happens to be two friends that come over to play D&D, twice a week on average, right? And the local restaurant I go to. That's plus of course the grocery store where I know virtually everybody by name. Okay, which is a neat challenge with me. But where it comes to sharing expenses, share ideas, share concerns. Okay, the world out there is getting frightening for a lot of people, as was pointed out to me really clearly today. Okay, some people talk a mile a minute because they're worried about what the world is turning into. Okay, or what's coming next. I'm telling you, yes, you can think that the whole 9 yards is completely controlled by other people. The reality is you're being encouraged to do really silly things on occasion. Now, I will encourage you to go to the link at the top of the stream here. Okay, to the buymeacoffee.com/innervoicej. I've got a lot of books available there. Absolutely, I'm going to encourage you to turn around and buy them. The hard copies I have. Okay, but the PDF is right there, easy to come across. Okay, and you get it instantly. And yes, I will encourage you to buy it. Of course, understand all of the tools in there. If they're the self-help books, I use those particular tools myself on a daily basis. Okay, for me, this is why I say do this. Not because I said to do it, but because I tried the other methods, many of them that you're trying now, that didn't work all that well. Okay, this is why I say I've already done the legwork. I've already shared it with thousands of other people. And a lot of them, they've had varying degrees of success. depending on their own personal efforts. But then realistically, the best tool on the planet is absolutely useless unless you pick the tool up. Now, I will warn you, I've seen a lot of tools that are absolutely useless that people keep electing into positions of power. But no, I am not going to utter names. Sorry, guys. You guys get to figure out which tools have been put in positions of power. I mean, realistically, you may find you're related to some of them. Needless to say, I have a little bit of a problem with my mouth of keeping friends around for very long. The reality of it is, when you look at the world around you, now is the time to really change things for the better. But that's up to you to do. Okay? It's a question in your case of how do you go about moving forward? What are you not content with? Absolutely talk to people around you. Share your concerns. See if they've got an idea on how to mitigate some of them. Okay? It's just one of those things that you got to look at. Now, I do want to take a look at this. Okay, today is the 12th. Tomorrow, we are going, because we're under the 10-minute mark here. Tomorrow, we are going to be looking at the impact of wardrobe and bearing in the modern world. Okay, that's where we're going to start. And again, it's not what you wear. I had a friend of mine, he was a pure artiste in high school. Now, this guy would show up, and he was as straight as it came, but he was also an artist and an actor. And he would show up at work or at school in a three-piece suit one day, beachwear the next day, watched him show up in his house coat and slippers on another day, and he'd also go the other direction, showed up one day in a ball gown. Okay, now, this is not my style of dress at all. Like, I won't wear one. I won't even wear a kilt. But this guy went, I am comfortable enough with me. I'm going to share my comfort with the world. Okay. Now, in my case, I just came to the conclusion, this is the way I am. And I've tried curbing things to make other people more comfortable with it. So tomorrow, we deal with literally, where are we? 12, 13. Tomorrow we deal with the impact of wardrobe and bearing in the modern world. Okay. Now, to be honest with you, this applied 10,000 years ago as well. It hasn't changed any. Okay. Come Friday, and I don't know about Saturday, but come Friday, we come back with Frontier Fridays, courtesy of Storm. Okay, and we're going to be looking at the Udina homeworld. Okay, it's time to get things moving forward properly. I will do my best to avoid going into another, shall we say, depressing tailspin. Okay, and stay on track here. But I do want to take the time to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really do appreciate it. Really, really do appreciate it. And, I do look forward to seeing you again when next we meet. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.